law aspirant for all law entrance examination. To this particular end, we have been having these webinars for the law school aspirant. And today I'm very pleased to share with you all that with us we have Mr. Amit Chaturvedi. He holds a 16 years experience of training kids in the critical reasoning and English section. He is a certified trainer from Cambridge. And today he has agreed to take session with us on a particular topic which is very, very important to law entrance examination, especially CLAT 2020, which is how to excel in reading comprehension. We are well aware that the English section this year will comprise of reading comprehension. And we understand that we have been doing sessions specifically focusing on reading comprehension. But the session today, the idea is to make you aware about how to excel in this particular section, how to get maximum marks out of this particular section. And this session today will especially be of very much important to the kids who have been struggling to score good numbers in English section per se. We welcome you, sir. And I hope this session is helpful to all the kids out there. And with this, over to you, sir. I'm sharing the slides with the kids.
Okay, thank you. Hi, good morning, everyone, wherever you are in the country. I would like to start with this, the very idea of this awe, that I'm not sure I cannot see you people and probably you would be able to see me exactly, but how has technology connected us sitting all the corner of the country? So Harsh talked to me about this session, and then I was quite delighted if I could share something that helps you in preparing for your dream examinations. So as I've already shared this PPT, I'll be taking roughly 40-45 minutes of yours, and then probably if you have some questions, we can talk about it. So let's begin. The first one, as you can see, the reading per se. First of all, what CLAT has done this year, somebody like me is quite excited. I'm not sure about the people, but that's what a lawyer is expected to do: read and read loads of material, loads of stuff. And when you read, you have to decode, comprehend, probably write, republish. So that's why reading has always been something that instrumental for being an efficient lawyer, not only for lawyer, for I think almost for all the profession, predominantly in the field of law. So I'm quite happy they officially declared it, and the way they have been coming up with their mock test, that's also has given us an idea that it's going to be very, very, very reading centric. In fact, ऐसा लगता है कि कोई difference है in terms of your RC session and your critical reasoning even for law. So it could be a rocket launcher game. Passages after passages and after passages, and you have to read it like a machine for 2 hours. So I want to start with this: reading for pleasure versus reading for purpose. Generally, हमारे देश में reading per se for kids, apart from what you study in your school, is more or less like a comic, or probably as you grow up, maybe some novels or mystery or thrillers. So we generally, barring some exceptional cases where parents or where some relatives or maybe an elder had interest and we also imbibe those qualities, हमने भी उन्हीं से सीखा. और इसीलिए हमारे लिए रीडिंग मोर और लेस टीवी जैसा ही होता है, कुछ भी ऐसा उठा लिया, पिक कर लिया, पढ़ लिया. So the first thing you need to understand, बहुत सारे बच्चे जो 10+2 के बाद से इस एग्जाम के लिए आते हैं, they are under the impression that we have studied from this XYZ convent school. इसीलिए हमारा रीडिंग डेफिनेटली बेटर होगा, या हमने कुछ शेक्सपियर के नॉवेल्स या वो पढ़े हैं. ये भ्रम से बाहर निकलना बहुत जरूरी है. सबने वो पढ़ा और कैसे पढ़ा है, I don't want to go in detail. So you need to understand you have cleared some examinations, and here the reading becomes a very different ball game altogether. So आपका जो pleasure reading है, कि कुछ भी आपने pick किया, that won't work here. You have to read for purpose. It does mean reading is, and listen to this point very carefully. I generally believe for examination, reading is a wastage of your time. Why? Because you don't get a single marks for reading. You get marks for taking the right option. So for any good entrepreneur, the wastages have to be minimum. It does mean you have to read very quickly, efficiently, and accurately so that you could reach to those questions. So I want you to start with this premise कि आपका reading purpose centric होना चाहिए. अगर आप बहुत ज्यादा उसको समझने की कोशिश करेंगे, if you try and spend read and reread it and regress, it doesn't work at all in an examination. That's why, but of course you cannot do it only in the examination. आपकी practice, आपका training, आपका जो daily regime है, that should be in that field कि आपको उस particular challenge के लिए prepare कर सके. Purposeful reading. What do we mean by this? Let me spend a minute on it. You pick up an editorial, maybe Hindu, Indian Express, Times of India, anything of your choice. And then before you read, ask yourself, why am I reading it? You want to read because you want to grasp a particular, a topic, maybe a certain issue. So if it is talking about government's approach in COVID-19 or what WHO has done or what China's response was, so how has the writer gone about explaining his point? What were the examples? What was the main idea of it? Did he give a counter view? Or did he narrate a certain incident that bolster his point? क्या हो रहा है passage में, you should be a party to it. I hope you have understood reading a comic book and reading something for your RC examinations, दोनों में difference होता है. और इसीलिए ये एक स्किल है जिसके लिए आपको ट्रेन होना पड़ता है. Skills are a very different ball game altogether. So everybody can walk, but थोड़ा बहुत रन सब कर सकते हैं. But running in a marathon, you need to have those regular practice, and you have to build up that stamina. So this reading for purpose requires stamina. और क्यूट लोगों के लिए थोड़ी सी परेशानी ज्यादा होती है. पता चला कि आपने बड़ी मेहनत से एक एडिटोरियल पढ़ा आधे घंटे में और वही क्यूट वाला हाल है, हम थक गए. अगर आप उस वाले जोन में पाए जाते हैं, माय सजेशन इज मूव, इलेक्ट्रॉन की तरफ से जंप करिए नेक्स्ट वाले साइकिल में. दिस क्यूटनेस डजंट वर्क. You have to understand that here it's a battle, it's a war, and then you have to be ready for it. So जब आप कुछ एग्जाम के लिए प्रिपेयर करो, जब रीड करो, then keep all your senses open. That's going to be very important. Harsh, next slide. Generally, people believe that slow reading, if you read it very slowly, your comprehension is better rather than reading it quickly. The answer is no. The slower you read, that the more regression you are going to be having. Regression means आप बार-बार उस point पे वापस जाओगे. आपको बार-बार लगेगा कि आपने कुछ point miss किया है. Again, remember, ये memory test नहीं है कि जिसमें अच्छा बताओ third word किस point पे लिखा था. It's not something. The passage is there, and that's why you read so that you could filter out information. You can find out first paragraph में क्या है, second paragraph में क्या है, third paragraph में क्या है. That's going to be very important. इसीलिए जो भी आपका speed है, I think it's a good idea that you measure your speed. How can you do that? I've shared some resources. You must be familiar with many others as well. But 4-5 अलग-अलग passages pick करो, number of words, and then make sure that the topics are different. I would suggest don't read politics. India में politics और cricket हमारे veins में बहता है. So आप वैसे भी अगर कुछ आ गया तो कर ले जाओगे. Try and read something that you don't read. ये reading का formula भी है that read anything that you don't want to read. It's a very that it helps a lot. So when you are reading, make sure that 4-5 ही आपने अलग-अलग topic pick किया और time measure किया. For example, in half an hour, you have read 6 different articles. So, and then they take a lump sum number of words. On an average, if a passage has say 400 words, then you have taken 2400 words in 30 minutes, something like this, or whatever, or 4000 words, 5000 words in 30 minutes. That will give you an average idea of your speed. For an examination like CLAT, that the speed should be anything about 250 to 300. Anything, more than 300 words per minute can be a wonderful speed. Whatever your speed is, anything below 150, 180 is a matter of concern. So you must aim at increasing it gradually, 200, 250, 280, 300 words per minute. How could you do that? Of course, by reading more, and then by experimenting with your reading, taking that eye span, थोड़ा सा नेट पे सर्च करिएगा, इतनी थोड़े टाइम पे इतनी सारी बातें नहीं करी जा सकती. बट आई स्पैन का मतलब है एक बार में कितने वर्ड्स आप पिक करते हो. आपकी आईज when they fall onto a certain text, how many words can you pick up in one go? How quickly can you change a stand? Do you have to keep on regressing? आपको बार-बार वापस तो नहीं जाना पड़ता to read them. That's very, very, very critical altogether. एक mental map बनाना बहुत जरूरी होता है. What do we mean by this? First paragraph में क्या हुआ? The writer has introduced an idea, and then second paragraph में the writer gave more examples to strengthen his point. Next paragraph में the writer has given a counter view to give a balanced perspective of a certain proposition. And in the last paragraph, he has gone on, sticking to his earlier ideas. Or probably in the last paragraph, he just leaves it to the reader. So whatever changes are happening, अभी next में हम थोड़ा सा और बात करेंगे इसके बारे में. But when you are very quickly understanding what is exactly happening, how is the paragraph moving, तो gradually आपका speed धीरे-धीरे बढ़ता जाता है. And बहुत important point है, you do not read what you keep on reading. Comfort reading से काम नहीं चलता. The reading has to be that purposeful. ऐसी चीजें जो आप yuck वाला feel देता, but still you have to read that. The next one. Harsh, the next slide. That's something, one of my favorite topics, predictive reading. Reading to anticipate changes in a passage. Now, what do we mean by predictive reading? When you are reading, you have reached your first paragraph. For example, if the writer starts, most of us, आज इस सेशन के बाद से कुछ न्यूज़पेपर्स, कुछ वेबसाइट्स पिक करिएगा. And probably आपको थोड़े से टिप्स समझ में आएंगे, where have they come from. So for example, if writer starts, most of the people believe, most of the people think, or most of the people were under the impression. So जैसे writer इस पे start करता है, we'll come back to this. Then वो how does move on exactly? वो कैसे आगे बढ़ता है? Yes, leave it here. For example, if he starts this, most of the people want to believe, most of the people that exactly are of the opinion that government should do something like this. A government has done very well. Then आप देखोगे, writer is not a part of those most of the people. He would have a contradictory idea. और जैसे generally we believe, generally we want, तो जब भी writer इस तरह के idea से start करता है, he is going to have a different idea. जैसे अगर writer start करता है, if you think that something is a very valid point, or if you think these animals are very dangerous, or if you think snakes are, all the snakes are poisonous or very dangerous, you will see that almost more than 90% cases, the writer would give a counterpoint. The writer would say that, that no, snakes are not like that. And he will certainly give you many examples of non-poisonous snakes, or where human and animal conflict might have been the cause of snakes biting men, men more often, maybe in jungle or wherever it's been happening. So, ये changes को predict करना, जैसे आपने देखा, the first paragraph is ending where the writer is suggesting, and this government step is leaving a very dangerous precedent. So आप देखोगे next paragraph में, he will talk about the dangers of that certain step what the government took. Or this step will open door for many opportunities for people who are on, marginalized. So आप देखोगे next paragraph में the writer will talk about the benefits of that certain step taken by the government. In all these cases, predicting is a very, very important idea altogether. कि आप changes को feel कर रहे हो. What's going to be happening? It saves your time and keeps you connected to the passage. In order to predict it, pay attention to the very first word of that, the first paragraph, and then the last paragraph. When first paragraph के last line में जब आप read it again, and then try and ask you for a second, अब next क्या होने वाला? Where is the writer ending this idea, and where will it lead to? Exactly next paragraph किससे start हो सकता है? Use your experience. Of course, you have to have experience in reading. और फिर आप देखो कि वो कनेक्टेड कैसे बनता है, वो आइडिया कहाँ पे आके जुड़ता है. Exactly how is it going to be happening? I think next will help you more. Harsh, we can have next slide. Now these are the tools of reading. अब इस पे थोड़ा सा ज्यादा टाइम खर्च करेंगे, शायद ये आपको ज्यादा हेल्प करेगा in your RC preparation. Every paragraph would have these certain linguistic tools. एक सेंटेंस इन सारे वर्ड से फॉर्मेट होता है. बट होप यू अंडरस्टैंड. फॉर एग्जांपल, इफ यू से दैट सचिन हिट अ सिक्सर, इस पूरे सेंटेंस में सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट वर्ड है सिक्सर, बिकॉज इफ अ बैट्समैन इज प्लेइंग हिट इज अ कॉमन टर्म. अल्टीमेटली व्हाट यू वांटेड टू नो कितने रन बने. You get it? And then you say he was LBW. So again, you wanted to know that what was the form of his, how did he get out? किस method से out हुआ? इसलिए हर paragraph में, हर passage में, these are the different tools that will help you staying connected with the passage. So we start with adjectives. What are adjectives? Anything that modifies a noun or a pronoun. कुछ भी ऐसा जो noun या pronoun के बारे में value बताता है, उसके बारे में additional information देता है. So for example, if you say it was a momentous change, तो ये जो बहुत strong adjective है, you want to know about it, that this word gives you an idea that change was on a huge scale. And if you say it made that it was as good as a storm in a teacup. So this very phrase gives you an idea that probably से कुछ नहीं हुआ. Or there were few people impressed by that. So ये जो word few है आपको बताता है hardly any, कोई भी impressed नहीं हुआ. इसका मतलब है project was as good as failed. So ये जो adjectives है, this gives you an idea inside the writer's mind. So adjectives generally either they talk about something good, something bad. So, watch out for adjectives. What kind of adjectives have been used in the passage? It's been, for example, if it says fabulous, fantastic, super, brilliant, it all these mean the writer is talking about something that he seems to be approving what's going in the passage. It was a wonderful idea. Anything which is giving you a positive idea. Of course, beforehand, जब भी आप एक word pick करो, हमेशा उसका context check करिए. A simple example is, if you say you look slim, or if you say you look thin, क्या difference होगा दोनों में? सोचो अगर आपके पास कोई आके कहे that you look thin or you look slim, आप किस पे ज्यादा खुश हो? So thin का मतलब है कि लग रहा है लॉकडाउन में खाने वाने को नहीं मिल रहा है, मतलब, और घर में आप झाड़ू पोछा नहीं कर रहे हैं, इसलिए कोई खाने को भी नहीं दे रहा. बट इफ यू से लुक स्लिम, इसका मतलब यू आर वर्किंग आउट, और आप जो हाथी ऐसे होते जा रहे थे, प्रॉब्ली धीरे धीरे मतलब शेप एंड साइज वापस आ रहे. सो सिंपल वन है, थिन इज नेगेटिव एंड स्लिम इज पॉजिटिव. दोनों का मतलब दुबला पतला या कुछ ऐसा हो सकता है, बट इन इंग्लिश द कॉन्नोटेशन इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. So thin is negative and slim is going to be positive. You realize it? So that's why context is very important. So for example, if you say he inspired and he provoked, दोनों में difference or insight. So सबका मतलब है किसी को एच करना, किसी को मतलब किसी काम के लिए पुश करना. But inspire generally positive, motivate positive, provoke an insight, they generally have a negative connotation. So if you are reading and you say the politician incited the mob, then exactly it means something bad seemed to be happening. If you say the politician exhorted people to resort to non-violence, now exhorting is appealing. So the context appear to be as if कि उसका impact कैसा है, पॉजिटिव है या फिर नेगेटिव है. So जब आप एडजेक्टिव्स पढ़ते हो, पैराग्राफ हमेशा किसी भी आरसी में अगर आपको फोकस करना है, एडजेक्टिव्स सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट चेंज मेकर्स होते हैं. पे अटेंशन टू देम, व्हाट्स बीन हैपनिंग इनसाइड द पैसेज, कैसे मूव कर रहा है, कैसे आगे कितने एडजेक्टिव्स आ रहे हैं बार बार. जब भी कोई बड़ा आइडिया आता है, जैसे अगर आपने if you have seen any video of Steve Jobs, especially when he came up with this first iPhone 1, then he also, the kind of adjectives what he used, still people use it in business presentations for their PPTs. It's extraordinary. It's something that you might not have seen before. So the power words, that's going to be adjective. Coming back to verb, there is a verb, and what does this do? A verb, talk about what actions seem to be happening when the government initiated. So again, you need to understand that where is it exactly happening. Generally, verb subject ko follow karta hai. So even if you don't know the meaning, and then if the word says that the player, and that in fact, if you want to say stride, or the player thrive through that, तो आप समझ जाओगे exactly the player की कुछ एक इवेंट चल रहा है जिसमें प्लेयर ने बहुत मेहनत की और probably successful हुआ. So these verb also give you an idea, the direction of it, कि वो exactly आपको बताता है कि डायरेक्शन कैसे मूव कर रहा है, किधर गया, कहाँ पे चला. Adverbs, again, adverbs and adjectives एक ही फंक्शन में काम करते हैं. The difference is adjectives primarily noun को modify करेगा और adverb verb को बताएगा. For example, if you say he played brilliantly or was trembling, that uncontrollably. So you need to find out इसका जो trembling था वो लगातार हो रहा था, और probably he must have been tired, or probably must have been quite afraid to do something. So these three, you just remove the adjectives, verb, and adverb. Pay attention to them. My suggestion is, when you read a paper, I'm assuming yeah, इस सेशन के बाद तो पक्का पढ़ेंगे, और उन पे attention, उनको underline करना start करिए. Where are adverbs? Where are verbs? Where are adjectives? How are they shaping up? जैसे आप थोड़े दिन कर लोगे, then it becomes a habit. फिर आप इसे mentally note down करना start कर दो. Initially, it may take some time, but of course, gradually, if you keep on doing it, it becomes a practice, not much of a deal. We've reached to the most important part of your reading one. These are called transition words. The list is very, very, very long, but probably I've given you some to give you an idea how does it look like. Transition का मतलब होता है change. जैसे आप गाड़ी चला रहे हैं तो आप इंडिकेट करते हैं, you want to go left or right, or probably what would be your next course of action. So transition words, writer के पास वो tool होता है in which it suggests you that how and when it's going to be moving. And all the transition words, they keep on doing a certain specific task. For example, if you have a word like and, or if you have a word like A and B, and if you have a word like A said something but B. When I'm talking about also and, then I'm talking about two similar ideas. So if two words are there, A and B, अगर आपको एक का meaning पता है तो आप दूसरे का meaning guess कर सकते हो. So for example, he was quite honest and candid. So आप realize करोगे कि candid, even if you don't know the meaning exactly, that you will figure it out. यहाँ कुछ वैसा ही होगा, positive होगा. So generally and के साथ positive और negative एक साथ नहीं connect होता है. Barring some exceptional cases, some highly specific usage of linguistic that Imagination, that's a different story altogether. अब एक एक करके थोड़ा थोड़ा सा इनको देखते हैं. जैसे but है, yet. So again, but, yet, though, although, in spite of, despite, notwithstanding, how do they move all together? Generally, they connect to opposite ideas. For example, you say he was fragile, but still, but managed to withstand that force of the opponent army. So generally, जो कमजोर है वो किसी से कितनी देर तक लड़ सकता होगा, बट यहाँ पे जब आपने बट लगाया है, इसका मतलब है that he did something जो generally एक कमजोर, एक fragile व्यक्ति नहीं कर पाएगा. For example, though he was poor, he had a heart of gold. इसका मतलब है कि अगर उसके पास एक रोटी भी होगी तो भी वो दूसरे से जरूर शेयर करेगा. So hope you understand, however, even though they are giving you an idea. So अगर आप इसका एक part भी ठीक से पढ़ते हो, you can easily understand what's going to be happening in the next part. However, howsoever he kept on trying hard, अब next में वो होना चाहिए जो generally hard work के बाद नहीं होता है. इसका मतलब he could not get success. Because if you work very hard, you generally get success. So this, however, word gives you an idea that something did not happen. If you get a word like TOO2, also, what do they mean? इसका मतलब a certain event, a certain proposition is happening with two different elements. So he too was overwhelmed, and she too participated in the race. So two different set of people did it. If you get a parajumble questions, get एक दो मिले आपके एग्जाम में, they again it helps you. Again, if you get moreover, इसका मतलब है the more explanation is being added to something. So अगर next paragraph moreover से start हो रहा है, तो जो past paragraph में जो description है वही extend होता है. But next paragraph you start, but all this, इसका मतलब है the writer is introducing a different argument. So hope you understand, you are making a bridge between these two. And then you are talking about two contradictory ideas. Jesse, in spite of his brilliance, he could not, or in spite of his laziness, he managed to win the race. In spite of his sloppy attitude, he did well. So what happened in the second one generally doesn't go with the first one. ये आपको in spite of बताता है. So जितने भी ये transition words हैं, बहुत सारे होते हैं. If you keep on reading it, keep on adding it up. उनको एक list में बनाते चले जाओ, आपको idea मिलेगा what is exactly happening. Though, although, even though, in addition to, alongside, that like, unlike. For example, like or unlike. So when you say like him, so two, similarities are being described. Unlike his father's approach, he was more benevolent, or probably he was more kinder to his subjects. इसका मतलब है, if you're writing unlike and son is kind, the father must not have been kind. And if you say like his father, he too resorted to violence. इसका मतलब father and son both were violent in their approaches. So if you get an inference idea question, probably it helps you. Yes, type of the question by NRC is in your reading section. You have already been meeting them quite frequently. Main idea. How we ask this question? What is the main idea of the passage? What did the writer want to state? Which of the option writer is most likely to agree with? Which of the option captures the theme essence? थोड़े difference के साथ more or less आप एक ही चीज पूछते हो. Main idea of the passage is, when the writer sat down to write this very passage, maybe a writer, editor, or anyone, what came into his or her mind? What did she want to share with other people? What was the rationale of this one? Your main idea बताता है. So for example, if I want to write down, or if I want to say that, that you should do XYZ things to stay away or to keep yourself safe, then my main idea is, by adopting certain strategies and then taking some certain precaution, there is a high probability you would be able to save yourself from Corona, COVID-19. So main idea, generally in options, एक या दो ऑप्शंस क्लोज, जनरली दो ऑप्शंस ही आपको क्लोज मिलता है. अगर आप ठीक है आपने पढ़ा है तो एक दो ऑप्शंस आप इजीली एलिमिनेट कर लेते. If you still have some doubts and then you want to recheck your option, read the first paragraph and then read the last few lines of the passage. Generally, writers have a tendency of either starting or ending with the main idea. In most of the cases, these two paragraphs or reading, few lines of these two paragraphs may help you a lot. कहीं ना कहीं से वो आपको एक hint दे देगा. That is exactly why did I write it. So either he starts something. Some writers have a habit of, giving the main idea in the very first paragraph. So then they write in then they give you the summary of what is going to come forward. Some writers have tendency of summing it up when they are ending the paragraph. But these two paragraphs can give you a very good idea. Main idea, अगर नहीं भी पूछा आता है exam में, still it's advisable, it is suggested that you figure out the main idea because बहुत सारे questions इस पे based होंगे. जैसे अगर उसने पूछा which of the option is true as per the passage or false as per the passage, or the writer agrees with that, then it could be a good idea that you already prepared for it. Explicit and implicit questions. Explicit is which you can find in the passage. For example, what was that? Why did the writer say it in the first paragraph or the second paragraph? मतलब है, reading those few lines may give you a good idea of that question. Here, I would like to tell you that generally people ask, is it a good idea that you read the questions that before reading the passage? In online screen, थोड़ा सा complicated हो सकता है, but I would suggest taking a glimpse of the questions on the right side. If you could do it very quickly. जैसे अगर उसने एक specific question detail पूछा है, that at the end of the second paragraph, what does this line mean or why did he say so? तो आप पहले से prepared होते हो. Before you reach to that part, you already know what has been asked and you can answer those questions. You can answer that explicit idea question. Inference, assumption, implicit. I think ये CLAT के लिए रणवीर सिंह और रणवीर कपूर और टाइगर श्रॉफ जैसे the latest heartthrob. So CLAT has categorically talked about how important these are: inference, assumption, and you have already seen they have bypassed every boundary. They can be asked in your reading comprehension, they can be asked in your critical reasoning, they can be asked almost everywhere. So this implicit idea questions, I think you have already practiced a lot, but hope you understand inference or assumption and any of those implied idea questions can only be answered if you have understanding of the passage, what has exactly happened, what you could infer out of it. So the basic definition inference key, when you draw something unknown on the basis of known, that's going to be your inference. So I'm sure you have already practiced those questions very frequently, because CLAT in all its preparatory videos and the gentleman also in his preparatory video, they have already suggested you, they want you to check your inferential abilities. In order to answer these questions, remember one thing. सबसे पहले तो आप ये समझ गए होंगे inference idea का मतलब ये है that what do you infer? What is your understanding? What do you take out of it? Of whatever has been happening. So inference, hamisha, it's never going to be cut, copy, paste from the passage. Inference, hamisha, आपके, that what do you understand from that very statement? So अगर कोई भी option आपके पास exactly passage वैसे का वैसा ही लिखा है, almost impossible है कि वही answer हो. अगर कुछ नया नहीं है, it has a very, very, very low probability of being the answer. So ये definition बहुत जरूरी है. Unknown information on unknown conclusion on the basis of known information. So this transition is very important. Assumption का मतलब ये है when you say something to somebody, what exactly comes in your mind, and then you say, for example, when you say, close the door, or probably take off the clothes from the, which are there at the terrace. Then you see the clouds happening. So your assumption is that, clothes may get wet because of that, that impending rain. So assumption का मतलब है जो आपने पहले से सोचा है, and then before you say that statement. So ये दोनों important point है. Inference generally speaker the inference generally reader के perspective से होता है. What is your inference? An assumption generally writer या speaker के perspective से होता है. So what did he think beforehand? And inference is what do you understand after reading this? बहुत बारीक सा difference है. Be very careful about what do you infer, what do you assumption. Maybe some other time we can talk more about it, but practice more and more about. और हमेशा अपनी errors को check करिए. That where did you go wrong? फिर से check करना known and unknown वाला point. Title of the passage and tone of the passage. So, title of the passage is primarily probably if you read that main idea question, आप उससे title आराम से draw कर सकते हो. Where was the passage heading and then exactly उसी के basis पे उसका summed up point है वो उसका title होना चाहिए. I generally use this example. The two iconic titles in Indian mythology, that what is known to everybody, Ramayana and Mahabharata. So Ramayana is the story of one certain person, सारे characters on एक person से connected. But Mahabharata में आप देखोगे that it doesn't say Kaurav, Pandav, or Lord Krishna, or Bhishma, or Duryodhana. So the title is everybody who is a part of this story is connected with that battlefield. ये idea आपको बताता है exactly. So title का मतलब है जो आपको एक represent करे what is going to be happening in that passage. So किसी movie का title, किसी book या novel का title, how do they create? It gives you a message about it. So when you are answering this question, ask yourself which of these options will give you an idea of story क्या है, where will it move, क्या होने के chances ज़्यादा हैं, where is it exactly where the passages seem to be moving altogether. Tone is a pure vocabulary question. अगर उसने एक ऑप्शन दिया है disparaging और exhorting, तो आपको मीनिंग पता होना चाहिए, तो कम आने का स्कोप कम है. Unless and until आपका राहु केतु बहुत स्ट्रांग हो या माता जी की दही चीनी आपने जो खाई है वो काम करती हो आपके केस में, if you don't know the meaning, it's a good idea कि उसे प्रणाम करके आगे बढ़ जाए. So if disparaging or doting and that probably that condescending or probably caling, अलग अलग टर्म्स होते हैं. तो अगर आप तुक्का मारने से इसमें काम नहीं चलेगा. और एग्जैक्टली जैसे अगर ग्रीन हॉर्न लिखा हो कहीं पे तो ग्रीन इसका ये मतलब नहीं कुछ प्लांट से ही रिलेटेड होगा. So there is a limit of कि आपके stars आपकी help कर सकते. If you don't know the meaning, in some cases it's a good idea that you move on. Harsh, next slide. I have compiled some of the resources. Again, you have already must have gone through it. The iconic Hindu Indian Express आपने बहुत बार पढ़ रखा होगा, आपने बहुत बार देखा होगा. I have added something. Again, एक indicative list है. I must tell you that the way CLAT has been choosing its resources, it's quite interesting, and at times can be threatening if you are a test taker. For example, अगर आपने if you remember those model test paper, why am I an atheist? एक article NY Times का था, Scroll का एक था, एक business जैसे जो सबसे इंटरेस्टिंग उन्होंने जीके में जो पॉइंट दिया था, one of the December articles of Business Standard, that art one, I think Guy Tondewala, Bombay Progressive Group, FN Soja, and that one altogether. So the way CLAT has been picking its article is wonderful. But कुछ बातें जो मुझे थोड़ी बहुत समझ में आई हैं, I would definitely like to share with you. कोई भी आर्टिकल अगर आप इस मोदी, योगी और राहुल, प्रियंका और ऐसा टाइप का पढ़ने की अगर आपने आदत बनाई है, it's a good idea that you drop it. Any article which is highly politicized or written by one of the either of these parties or maybe one, just say for pure politics से related है या कुछ ऐसा है, that it's high probability again it's not going to be there. Any article which is हीलिंग कि जो सुपर हीरोज हमारे देश में जिनका जन्म हुआ, महेंद्र सिंह धोनी या विराट कोहली या रोहित शर्मा और ऐसा टाइप का हाईली यूलोजाइजिंग, अगेन आई डोंट थिंक कि इसमें से क्लैट को ज्यादा इंटरेस्टेड दिखता है. सो they seem to be interested, or generally examinations in general, they are interested in ideas, where an idea is explored, when idea is, that it's explored in different ways, analyzed, criticized, and then you try and think of, जैसे अगर आप किसी book का review पढ़ो, can be a very good point altogether. So I've compiled some of these. My favorite is Aeon.com. एऑन में हमेशा ध्यान रखिएगा कि एऑन एक चाइनीज वेबसाइट है, चाइनीज हर जगह पाए जाते हैं, मोमो से लेकर के एऑन तक की. सो when you write down, when you don't get this on, write down aeon.com/essays, so that will give you on one of the finest website when it comes to ideas. एक दो आप पढ़ के देख सकते हो for RC practice altogether. It may not help you much in GK, but reading comprehension and then, or generally इसके passages बड़े बड़े होते हैं, 4400 वर्स, 3300, 2200, 1400. सो आपकी स्पीड के अच्छा हो सकता है, और उससे भी ज्यादा अच्छा है जैसे आप अपनी रीडिंग को, प्रिडिक्टिव रीडिंग को प्रैक्टिस करना चाहते हो, then wonderful website. I generally keep on promoting. Aeon keeps on asking about donation, but पैसे तो नहीं है, तो इसीलिए मतलब प्रमोट करते रहते. Aeon has also come up with a very interesting another one, Psych. Aeon की वेबसाइट पे जब आप जाओगे तो उन्होंने एक Psych, एक small magazine start किए. That can be, that a wonderful part altogether. So Aeon can be a good one. That probably, that Miss I'll ask Harsh if we could, show the website, but maybe once it's over. Another one is projectsyndicate.org. इसमें mention होना चाहिए था, projectsyndicate.org.com की जगह पे. Again, इन दोनों वेबसाइट्स पे जब आप जाओगे, ऑन पे, प्रोजेक्ट सिंडिकेट पे, सो दे हैव पॉलिटिक्स, इकोनॉमी, साइंस, टेक्नोलॉजी. फॉर एग्जामिनेशन पर्पस 2-3 टॉपिक्स ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट होते हैं. जैसे CLAT has been a very relevant paper. They ask you something what's been happening around the world, so socio-economic. जैसे any topic regarding this racism, Black Lives Matter, what's been happening in America, can be a good resource. Think about those. Socio-economic, technology, what's been happening, global warming, environment, they're very, very, very interested about. History, geography, they may not, but अगर कोई relevant है, which has to continue this importance, as CLAT has also talked in its website, can help you a lot. So these two websites, my suggestion is, apart from Hindu, Indian Express, whatever you read, is resource जो मैंने आपसे share किया है, एक दो आर्टिकल पढ़ेंगे, it will help you in one way or another. NY Times एग्जामिनेशन का आज से नहीं, करीब 15 साल 18 साल से जितना मुझे समय हुआ है, it has always been favorite of exams. Many cases NY Times के editorial बिल्कुल cut copy paste होते हैं RCs में, and then they frame questions on it. Some of them can be wonderful. Guardian again the same. Daily Mirror, उसके blogs बहुत अच्छे होते हैं. So that brought my interest into reading. The Economist. I think you people are smart enough, and then you must have been using Telegram. Telegram पे अगर आप Telegram पे जाओ, उस पे मतलब अलग-अलग चीजें सर्च करो, तो रीडिंग के बहुत सारे materials available. Probably it may give you a very, in fact, some of the finest resources the world knows about. Time, if you could get that magazine, थोड़ा सा expensive है, so अगर online कहीं से मिले या किसी के पास है, जरूर पढ़िए. I give you an example. When Sachin Tendulkar retired, 2012 or 13. Now imagine, what could you write about Sachin, which people haven't read? So of course, that I might have read not fewer than 100 articles on Sachin when he retired. And still I found there was, the time was available with one. I don't know, somebody gave it to me, but I went ahead with this, the time issue. And then I came to know what, the classic writing is all about. It was an amazing that the coverage. So आप समझ सकते हैं कि जो राइटिंग का स्किल है, टाइम इकोनॉमिस्ट पे कुछ आर्टिकल्स बहुत अच्छे लिखते हैं. My suggestion is just have a look. Examination perspective से, as a general reader से, or appreciating what language is capable of doing. Scroll by a Quint, highly politicized, but they are the favorites of examination. Some of the articles in Scroll, some of the articles in Economic Times as well. They are quite good. Especially Business Standard, Economic Times mein, surprisingly, when their political coverage is very nice. In fact, in some cases, better than the mainstream newspapers, which are, when I say mainstream means, which are for generic purpose. So, the business and economy wale newspaper hai, when they give an editorial, examinations ko pata nahi wo fascinating lagte hain. So, think about it. BBC की वेबसाइट अटलांटिक के भी आर्टिकल्स बहुत अच्छे होते हैं. They can also help you a lot about it. So if you refer to that, that may exactly give you a better understanding of it. I would like to end with this last couple of minutes. Let's understand something basic. ये एक indicative list है. If you talk to somebody, probably you get another list or somebody else. So list से ज़्यादा फर्क नहीं पड़ता. कुछ भी आप अच्छा सा पढ़ोगे, that will help you a lot. My point is, read anything consistently. ये bits and pieces की reading है ना, 5 मिनट 10 मिनट सुबह उठ करके देख लिया, पढ़ लिया, या सिर्फ दिमाग में चल रहा है पढ़ना है. Generally it doesn't help. Consistency. It does mean reading something at a stretch, 1 hour, 2 hours, and then only your brain starts getting connected to what's been happening. It takes time and it's a painful experience. I hope you are smart enough to understand कि दुनिया की सारी चीजें Netflix और Prime videos नहीं होते हैं. बहुत सारी चीजें hardcore, serious affairs होते हैं. And there you have to be very, वहाँ पे skills test की जाती हैं, and they are built up in isolation. मतलब skills raw materials होता है, मतलब उसको build-up किया जाता है. वो अचानक से कहीं ऐसे नहीं, one fine day you get up and then start doing. It takes its own speed, little time. So build it up, struggle, slog, toil, and then strive for it. And then you understand what your brain is capable of achieving. So I would like to thank Harsh and his team for this wonderful opportunity. I hope that lay experience and probably a little bit of understanding of RC might have been helped. Thanks for bearing with me and my boring words. I wish you all the very best. Thank you, Harsh, and thank you, team.
Thank you so much, sir, for
If
taking
anybody
your
has some question, I would be happy to answer.
Sure, sir. I'm waiting now. As such, there are no questions as of now, sir.
Okay, you may, if they have, they may send you there.
Yeah, so as you told, as you always say, that if somebody is not asking questions, there are two things: either they understood everything or they understood nothing. So I will take it in the first notion that they understood everything. The examples were quite interesting and realistic, and the basic idea that how these inferences questions have come into the pictures and show the recent crush section of a CLAT consortium. That analogy fits in. And coming up with the reading comprehension section is a much needed aid to the aspirants who are preparing for law entrance examination going to be in law schools. I hope this session becomes useful to the aspirants, and they always go through this video even before they are going for law entrance examination. So on that particular note, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Harsh. Thank you. All the very best, everyone who's ever was connected with us. Thank you.
Let's see you again at 4 p.m. today with a session on current affairs, and we will be discussing on the on something related to space missions.